pray. Lord God, thank you so much for giving us this time together, and bless us as we continue to explore the beliefs of other religions. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Okay, we have looked at what so far?
Judaism.
We looked at Judaism, and we found out what about Judaism?
I wasn't here.
You weren't here. We found out that Miranda wasn't here. That was one thing. Rose wasn't here. You know, you weren't here. Who was here?
We were here.
My gosh, you were here. Okay, good. We looked at, yes, okay, Judaism, the ones who were here, not the ones who weren't, what did we find out about Judaism?
All kinds of things.
All kinds of things.
Circumcision.
All kinds of things.
And the
Circumcision, there you go, Chris. Circumcision, yeah.
Interested
All
in
right. As a sign of dedication, dietary restrictions. You can eat. Yeah, what's that?
The Torah.
The Torah, the law. You know, the history. You know, the history.
That they don't believe.
I was
They
jealous
believe
that
that
I couldn't even be wrong.
Okay, resurrection. Yeah, that you don't believe in souls and bodies, which is going to be very different than what we look at tonight. Okay, so that's what we looked at Judaism. We looked at Christianity. Were you here for Christianity? Okay, that's good. Christianity, and what did we learn about Christianity? There's a lot of things I didn't know. Like what? It was named after
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. You know, that was his last name.
Sounds better in Arabic.
Yeah, it sounds better in Arabic. Okay, we find out it's centered on Jesus Christ, and again, sort of we looked at what were basics of Christianity, because we have a lot of different, and we may do that in the future. You know, the different parts within Christianity. But we kind of looked at the basics of Christianity, and what did we say were kind of the basics? If you believe these things, you're a Christian. If you don't believe these things, then you may be fun at parties, but you're not a Christian. Okay? You know, you may be a good dancer, you may be fun at parties, but you're not a Christian. What were some of the basics? Okay, Christians believe in the Trinity. And the Trinity is Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And what do Christians believe about the Trinity? They're one. You know, they're one and three. 3 and 1. Okay, so it's one God, 3 persons, which just blows the mind. Jews do this. Muslims do. But Christians do what they also do. Because they don't understand it either. But kind of just sort of shrug. So you got to believe, Christians believe in the Trinity. Now, and we'll look at maybe in another series, like Jehovah's Witnesses done it. Believe in the Trinity. Right. You know Jehovah's Witnesses. Mormons, Latter-day Saints, they don't Trinitarian. They're tritheists. So are they Christian? Well, if you say the Trinity is essential, then they're really close, but they're not there. All right, what else would be an essential? So we believe in Trinity. What else?
Resurrection.
Okay, we believe in resurrection, particularly as we relate to Jesus. You know, that Jesus crucified, dead, buried. Good night. You can kind of go through the Apostles' Creed. And that's what Christians believe. Now, if you don't believe Jesus was raised, and there's a lot of ways you can believe he was raised, maybe. You know, but if you don't believe he was raised, then you're probably not a Christian. No, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're just not a Christian. Okay, so that would be kind of essential. Baptism somehow plays a role in Christianity. What else? Communion probably is all Christians have some sense of Eucharist, some sense of communion. Different branches of Christianity have other sacramental things, but we could say all Christian, Orthodox, Protestant, Roman Catholic have those two, so recognize those two as sacrament. Okay? So these are Christian things. And so we looked at Judaism, we looked at Christianity, we looked at Islam. And what can we say about Islam?
It's complicated.
Well, Islam, would a Muslim say it's complicated?
No.
Muslim wouldn't say it's complicated. Muslim, in fact, would say, what about Christians? Boy, is that complicated, because you got this guy who is God. You know, we don't have a God who's God. We got what? God. We got a God who's God. We don't have a guy who's God and a God who's God and a spirit who's God and they all together and. So a Muslim would say, man, Christianity is just way too complicated. Okay? So it's kind of where you are, what you're exposed to. But a lot of it some of it is different. A lot of it is very similar to Christianity. What did we say about Islam?
The Quran.
Okay, Quran is their holy book.
The Muhammad.
And Debbie is doing this.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
I promise Joy and Chris, after you're done with the stuff, to lend it to them.
Just a few pages would probably blow our mind.
Well,
Yeah.
but if you started at the beginning, I'll tell you, if you started at the beginning, you would probably be bored out of your mind reading. You know, because it's just like if you started the Bible, you'd probably be bored out of your head unless you believe it. And the Quran is like that too. So Quran is sacred writing. What else? Muhammad is an important. What is a prophet? Who are the prophets?
Jesus.
Ray's got all kinds of prophets. Jesus is a prophet in Islam. Joseph is a prophet. Moses is a prophet. Jonah is a prophet.
Too many prophets.
Job is a prophet.
All the chosen ones.
Yeah.
Isaiah.
Hun? Wasn't there a Hun?
Well, yeah, I don't know, honey. That was she's a sweet gal. So you got a lot of prophets, and what does it tell you about Islam median? What does that say about Islam? If you got Jesus as a prophet, you got Adam as a prophet, you got.
They never worship them as a god.
Didn't worship them
They
as a
cover
god.
their face so people don't have that idol look.
Right. And what else does it show?
It's a derivative of Christianity.
Yes, they're all connected. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all tied together because Islam is developing in an area that is heavily influenced by Judaism and Christianity. You know, so you've got, and it's they're radically monotheistic, one God, and in Arabic, what is God in Arabic? Allah. So when you say Allah, you don't go, ooh, you know, what is Allah? That's a strange and unusual thing. It is God. That's what it means. It's God in Arabic. Just like El, you know, the Jews worship El. You know, because El is Hebrew for God. That's what God is El.
They strongly also believe that you don't make idols of God and Muhammad and other
Absolutely.
prophets. They don't.
That's
believe in that.
exactly right. And, you know, he believes in humility. You know, that's why Muhammad Ali was the way he was. And remember, there were 5 pillars of Islam. And when you look at the pillars of Islam, some of them are really comfortable. Like what? You got to get to the poor. Pillar of Islam, you get to the poor.
It's like one in the
You
circle.
got to take care of your fellow man.
Yeah, you take care of the people around you. You confess God. You pray, not as much as Christians. Most Christians
Probably
pray.
like 10 times a
Yeah,
day.
we have to pray a formal prayer 5 times a day. You know, if you count every time I'm in a car praying that something horrible happens to the guy who got me off. I pray for more than that.
There's no official head of the church.
No, absolutely not. Although there is a spiritual leader. The imam is a teacher, but he's not
But
clergy.
so is a minister a teacher?
But he's not doesn't play a priestly role, and that becomes a real
Seriously.
difference.
I thought that he would.
Now
What is
remember,
his role then?
as a teacher,
Okay.
Yeah.
Teaching the
Exactly.
Quran, teaching.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what his job is. That's what he does. So you don't have any clergy that have a different status with
Do
God.
they have a church service, or do they just?
You-
I mean,
Yeah, well, it depends on how you define service. If you're talking about a verbal, just like in Judaism, if you talk about a recitation of the Quran in a formal way that involves prayer and exposition of the Quran, which is like a sermon, yeah, then you have a service. But it's not a service that uniquely connects us to God. You see what I'm saying? It's not like, and Protestants become closer, because that's kind of the way Protestants see it. Or our Orthodox and Catholic brothers and sisters see a more spiritual component, a connection, special connection with God. But Muslims wouldn't see the teaching of the Imam or anyone else as a person who has a higher status or has a connection to God.
Well,
they don't stand between.
What goes on in the mosque then during the service? What goes on?
Preaching and teaching.
By the imam.
Yes.
Which is the same as a minister or a priest or a rabbi.
Well.
Yeah, but he's not an intervention. He doesn't intervene.
Yes and no.
Well, neither does that.
Well, but in like with a Roman Catholic service and an Eastern Orthodox service, there's a priest, and that in the Mass, in the Eucharist, the sacrifice of Jesus Christ takes place, and it has to be done by a priest, because a priest has a unique status with God. I couldn't go into a Roman Catholic church and perform the service. Or I could do the service, but I couldn't do the Mass. But I could do a sermon. But I sure as heck couldn't do the Mass.
Can't do the communion
because that's, I would need to be a priest. I would need to have that status with God. And an imam doesn't have that status. They don't see anyone with that status. Protestants don't see any human being having that status.
You can't even say the verses, like at a funeral, when my father, I know it was my father and my sister-in-law died, they wanted me to speak, wanted to read, and I wasn't allowed to read John 3:16, I think.
Well,
the priest wouldn't let me read it.
Well, some of it has more to do with the priest than it does with official church doctrine. And I know that because I've participated and read at Roman Catholic funerals and participated in Roman Catholic weddings.
But there were just certain passages I couldn't read, at least with the priest.
Yeah, I think that some of that has to do with the priest, and I mean Protestants. I mean, we kind of deal with. Some of us do the same thing. Ministers do the same thing. But I want to get into Hinduism because we are really looking at a religion now that is radically different. The three that we looked at have a lot of connections, and in fact, we have gone from, in terms of verbiage, calling ourselves a Christian nation to a Judeo-Christian nation to an Abrahamic nation, which includes the three religions, because all three, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, are all Abrahamic religions, have our origins in Abraham, have a sense of monotheism, would say monotheistic, even though they wouldn't agree among themselves that they're monotheistic. Yeah, they come from the same origins in the same part of the world, have sacred writings that are remarkably similar, are what I call exclusive religions, all three. You
share a lot of prophets.
They will share a lot of everything. Even rituals, share a lot of rituals. We have a lot of stuff in common. And even in terms of how we see the rest of the world in other religions, all three of those religions are looking to convert. All three are looking to convert people, to their particular religion. Now we're going to start looking at some religions that are radically different, have a very different sense of God and what religion and faith means. And the first we'll look at is Hinduism. If somebody asked you what a Hindu was, what would be some of the words you'd use to describe? If I said I am a Hindu, but you couldn't see me, I was behind a curtain, and I said I am a Hindu.
Maybe by the
What do you visualize?
Maybe the language.
Okay, you're visualizing that I would speak a certain language, or if I spoke English, I would speak it with an accent. I'd sound like Apu from The Simpsons. All right.
Indian.
Yeah, I would sound, okay, you think Indian, which means I'm probably
A doctor.
a doctor. And if I'm not a doctor, I'm probably an engineer, a doctor engineer. So I've got a good education, or I'm at a call center answering for Apple. If you got a problem with your computer. Okay, I may have a turban. You're thinking I have a turban on my head?
That you believe in reincarnation?
I believe in reincarnation, so I may worry about whether I'm coming back as a slug. Not that I'm becoming increasingly slug-like now.
I've seen a lot of them.
Okay, to that level.
Yeah, levels of
I've seen a lot of them.
slave all the way up.
And you let the cows and the monkeys just run free through your city.
So if I'm behind the sheep, I'm surrounded by cows and monkeys. Okay.
Well, you know, a lot of them are scared.
Well, I'll tell you, I did teach school at a time. Don't know what that means. It just seems, kind of was drifting there. All right, so that's what we think of. We have certain things in mind when we think of Hindu. And it's interesting, most of them you gave me had to do with physical characteristics.
Gods, too.
Yeah, okay, so there's a bunch of different gods. Okay. All right.
We're big on spicy foods.
Now, this is, I'm sorry. Ladies, that's inappropriate.
He's in a speedo.
Yeah.
Looks like a diaper to me.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
That was me on vacation. I didn't mean to. Yeah, I didn't mean to show that. All right. This is a Hindu. What do you think he's doing?
Getting baptized.
Well, he's not being baptized. Well, that's really good. Would certainly never call it baptism, but it has the same sort of meaning. You know, what's he doing?
Is that the Ganges?
He's in the Ganges. He's wading in the Ganges, a holy sacred river.
But what are
Okay.
they doing? I mean, what is it then?
Got
It's
baptized. What's going on?
like a baptism.
Is it like a spiritual thing?
Well, right here they're shooting a movie. No. It is a spirit. It is a spiritual thing.
Spiritual.
It is a spiritual thing. It's a cleansing in this sacred river.
But that's what baptism is. A cleansing.
Ooh. Michael Meyer.
Yeah. Like him.
The Love
Charlie
River.
Manson.
Yeah. Maybe the worst movie ever made. Tended to be pretty mocking, pretty critical of Hinduism and such. And this guy's also a Hindu. And you know he's a Hindu because the look.
Color of his skin.
Yes. And he's reading, as opposed to a lot of American Christians who are now post-literate. You know, we are now post. He's not watching TV or listening to having earbuds. He's actually reading something. But all of those would be representations of Hindu. Okay, as we look at history, we're gonna deal with Hinduism from. We're going to look at the prehistory, the Vedic history, and we're going to get to that. Ancient India, the Mughals, early modern, the British Rajas, and contemporary. All right, prehistory. Now, what is this?
Mountains.
Okay, this is mountain, right? Okay. It's Mount Kailash. And on Mount Kailash, and you can see it if you look really, really carefully, okay? If you look right there. Can you see it? It's a little, right there. Can you see that right there? That's Lord Shiva. The god Lord Shiva lives on Mount Kailash. So you can see him, he's doing this. He's waiting at you, okay? This is a Shiva, which is a ancient god, and these are cufflinks.
Swastikas.
Yeah, that were worn by Adolf Hitler. And no, they weren't. They do, don't they? They look like the swastika because guess what? This is really exciting. Yeah. That was an ancient symbol of good luck, prosperity to the people who would become Hindus. Yeah, which is kind of interesting. Now, why is it important that we're talking about what does prehistory mean?
Before they start creating.
Okay, before written history. So if we were looking at prehistory, or before with the writing stuff, that's how we know something about prehistory. What would be characteristics of prehistory? Okay, verbal. So your prehistory involves, if it's verbal and people have later written it down, they're not writing it then because they can't write, right? So they're telling stories, right? And later those stories are written down. What would be like if we were looking at in terms of Judaism or Judeo-Christianity? What would be something we could consider like a prehistory?
Before somebody discovered it?
Okay, something like Noah and the Ark, Adam and Eve, these are Cain and Abel. These are stories that are being conveyed. So now the fact that we've got this religion, and this isn't full-blown Hinduism. This is sort of the roots of Hinduism. Why is it significant that these roots are prehistoric or
Maybe they didn't discover what's going on yet.
Okay, that they haven't acquired certain ways to communicate.
Actual physical experience with them.
Okay. What would we expect to develop during this prehistory? In any religion, not just Hinduism, but any religion. If a religion sees itself as going back into a prehistory, what would we expect to come out of that time?
The culture.
Okay, we'd expect some cultural elements to come out.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
People questioning why are we here?
Okay, good. We've got people asking questions, right? And what do they do? What might they develop in prehistory to deal with those questions?
Figure out a way to make it sound better. Make up a story.
Okay, you develop alphabets and stuff.
Governments, a hierarchy of some kind.
Oh, okay. And you develop.
Law.
What did you say first? What did you say first? Before you said law, when John was saying, true, you said they develop stories.
Yes.
Because you're asking, why does this happen? And there's a story, right? Goes way back.
To explain why.
To explain.
Or
That's
maybe
right, to
make a
explain
comfort.
why.
Maybe it's a better answer for the comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we work 7 days? Why do we only work 6
It's going
days?
to make up some kind of comfort to let them know.
Why do we rest 1 day a week?
Because God
On
rested.
the Lord's
Because God, there's a story of creation where God rested. Yeah. Why is it so hard? If God is good, why is it so hard to grow crops? Why do we have to work so hard and work the land so hard? And it's like a struggle to get things
Because there's too many greedy people.
Because, let me tell you, son, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. Why do people do horrible things to one another? Let me tell you a story. So the prehistory gives us these stories that we can take of a different time. A time that we can't visualize, but a time of gods and people. We have stories that give meaning to the events around us. Now, I don't need to necessarily believe the historicity of the story for the story to have power. Why is it so hard? The ground's so hard. Well, because human beings, we kind of trust ourselves, and that's the way it is. Yeah, so the story has a meaning. Okay, so we're getting all that from this prehistory. We've got sort of an origin. Okay, as we look at the development of the history of Hinduism, there's what's called a Vedic period. And now we talk about change, because one of the things you said about prehistory is prehistory doesn't have writing. So nobody is writing stuff down that's happening now, right? But in Hinduism, when you get to the Vedic period, what do you have now? Okay, now you start having writing. And this we're looking at 4,000 to about 1,000 BC. So this is ancient Egypt going on. Where do you think these civilizations, this civilization developed?
India?
Okay, it's in India. Where in it? The center of it. Where do you think an ancient civilization, and this is characteristic of all ancient civilizations, where are they going to take root and develop?
Close to the water.
Close, what kind of water?
Holy
Water, there's
Holy
Ganges.
water.
What kind of, is it going to be close to oceans?
No,
No. Why wouldn't it be close to oceans?
because it's going to have to be calm.
Salt water. Salt water. If you're settling down, you're doing what?
You need
water.
water.
You need water to drink. And you need water to bathe. And you need water to
Water for everything.
grow crops. You know, when you're hunters and gatherers, you're wandering around, right, killing animals, gathering stuff. And then you can do that anywhere, right? Hunters and gatherers. But when you're...
Yeah, someplace to settle at one point around water there at least every couple of days.
Well, you have to settle. But you can travel and find springs and stuff. When you find this river valley, and all of a sudden you find that you don't have to find wheat. What you can do is you can grow it. You don't have to find animals to kill, hunt animals to kill. What can you do?
They're going to water.
Well, they're going to come to the water, so you can kill them then. And then what can you do after a while? They come to the water, you kill them, then you can domesticate them. You know, because you know those animals that you kill can also provide milk. And so if we domesticate it, we can actually get milk from it. And we don't have to chase them anymore. We can keep them in pens, and we can grow crops.
If you don't want to kill your great Aunt Sadie, she might be one of them.
Have we crossed into cannibalism?
You know, the reincarnation.
I saw a joke today about this company hired a group of cannibals to work at this big company. Hired a group of cannibals, but the owner of the company said, "I think y'all are good workers, got great resumes, but one thing you got to promise: you can't eat anybody in the company. You cannot eat anybody in the company." Well, if they hire them and they're doing good work, they're really focused and they're working hard. And after 4 weeks, the owner of the company calls them in and says, "You guys are really working well." And I think it's great. I'm very impressed with your work. There's just one problem. A secretary has gone missing. And we need to, I got to ask you, have any of you guys eaten the secretary? And they asked the guy, and all the guys go, no, we didn't do it. And the owner says, okay, but I'm gonna have to keep my eye on it. And so he goes, and the cannibals are together. And one of them says to the others, he says, "Okay, which one of you ate the secretary?" And one of them raises his hand. He says, why did you eat the secretary? We've been doing fine just eating the managers and nobody noticed. So, yeah. So you're living, you don't have to eat Aunt Sadie anymore. Okay, so they're living, and once you're settled down, right? Because you're not wandering around anymore. And you're eating better because you don't have to work quite as hard to get the protein.
Reading the managers.
You start doing what? You start thinking, right? And developing other things. Exactly, some leisure time. And one of the things you learn to do is you start writing things down. Now, as soon as you start writing things down, how does that change your culture? What happens?
Well, things become codified then.
Okay, things get, and what starts getting codified? What starts getting down? You know, people say black and white.
Their beliefs.
Okay, you got beliefs. So in terms of religion, all of a sudden you start writing down not just some of the stories. Did you write them? You write them? Okay, you start writing down laws because some philosophies. You start writing down a hierarchy. Start writing down a lot of things. You know, like how to grow crops. You write down how to treat sickness. So you start writing it down. Now, once you start writing it down, what kind of people you didn't need necessarily much before, but now kind of become more important.
The priestly group.
You get a priestly, and what does that priestly group do? What's its job?
They're the ones that can probably read.
Okay, they can read the stuff, right?
And they can write it.
And they can write it, and if they can read it, and if they can write it, what else are they doing with it? They can interpret it, and they can start teaching. And during this Vedic period, they start writing down these stories that have developed in this prehistory. And they start interpreting, and the interpretations start being written down. Now, is that different than what we see happening in Judaism and Christianity? Absolutely not. Same sort of process going on. People are starting to write down the stories and starting to look at the stories for meaning. Okay, so Vedic period is when we start writing. Okay, ancient India. Now, as you move from this early writing, when they're first starting to write, later, what direction would we expect to see? Would we expect the people to move? I mean, how is society? How is religion? What direction is it going to move now that we're writing these stories down?
Architect.
Okay, you're going to start doing even more things. You're going to start looking to build stuff, right? Yeah. And that's what you start building what?
Temples.
You start building temples, right? And what would those temples, and if you look at temples and tombs, they tend to have
like a pyramid.
Kind of pyramid. Now, why would you start building when you start building? I mean, gosh, Debbie's looking forward to a time in our life when we live in a nice ranch house.
Yes.
Everything on the same level.
Yeah,
don't have to
those
climb stairs anymore.
with
Why would they be building?
To get closer to God.
Because you're getting closer to God. Now, that's just because they're ancient and kind of silly, right? Modern people don't do that.
Town of Babel did it.
Well, Tower of Babel did it, sure. You look at the pyramids. You look at the pyramids in Mayan pyramids and pyramids in Mexico. You got the ziggurats in Mesopotamia. But Christians, we have never done it. Like every cathedral or any church with a steeple.
Yes.
I mean, what are we trying to do? We're trying to reach out to God. So, but you're able to build things, right? Okay. Now, as this, and this is, this civilization is beginning in a river valley, because that's where civilizations always begin. Nile, river valley, right? You have Tigris, Euphrates, wonderful river valley. 2 river valleys. That's really cool. You got the Yangtze in China, river valley civilization. You got the Indus River, river valley. Now, when the people in that river valley, because they got more time on their hands, right? And they're writing, and they're growing things, and they're eating better, what are they going to start doing?
Spreading
They're going to start spreading their beliefs and their ideas, right? And remember, as they're developing in the river valley, what are the people doing in the hills? They're running around eating berries, right? They're running around,
Being lazy.
well, they're not, no, these guys aren't being lazy, but they're chasing down herds. They're throwing rocks at herds, trying to kill a
Doing all the hard
buffalo.
work.
Yeah, they're doing hard work, and they're gathering berries and eating berries.
Is
and
it more
stuff.
like the slaves or something?
Well, they're more like, they're hunters and gatherers.
Like wild men.
Yeah, they're hunters and
Yeah,
gatherers.
like cave.
Because like cave. You know, they're developing transportation, you know, 2 wheels, and they run with their feet underneath.
Flintstones?
Yeah, and they turn animals into garbage disposals and telephones and stuff. That's what's happening in the river valleys. These guys are just wandering around. They're just wandering around, eating what they find. They're surviving. They're getting enough to survive. Now, are they going to be more powerful?
Civilized.
Yes. What's going to happen when these guys start settling down?
Society.
Okay, you start getting a society, right? And you start, labor all of a sudden is differentiated, right? Because I may be a lousy farmer, but I am really good at making pottery. I am good at making pottery. I am a lousy farmer, good at making pottery. So what do? I make pottery, and what do I do with it? Exchange it for the crops. So we start getting a division of labor. You know, do you get more people? Sure, you get population increases. You can feed them now. So you start having society developing. You need, once you get a lot of people together, what are you going to need?
Food.
You're going to need food. You're going to need money. You're going to need laws. That's right. Or people are going to go nuts. And so you're going to need laws, and you're going to need somebody to enforce the law, execute the law. So that's, all of these are developing, and these guys are just running around, acting silly. You know, collecting, worshiping bushes, sticks, and stuff. You know, not even worship them, eating bushes and sticks. Yeah, and these guys in the river valley, you know, recognize that even though you could grow things here, you can also grow stuff here. You know, so what do? They start taking over.
They start spreading.
Okay, and that's what we start having as civilization, and they start taking their beliefs and they start taking their laws out. And this is a time in ancient India where a group called, and we're getting a more formal set of beliefs called Gupta. And you'll see a lot of people with Gupta from India with Gupta in the name. Yeah, Gupta in the name. The Gupta Empire was this ancient, and we're talking about now like 500 BC to like 500 AD. So we're still talking ancient world. We've got Rome going on and Greece going on in the west, but we've got this Gupta Empire in the east. Now, to keep this group together, keep this civilization together, especially as they're bringing in different tribes and bringing in. Now, when you have a written language, that means you have to have an oral language, right? And so they develop a language called, you know, in India what the language is? Sanskrit. They develop Sanskrit as a written language. So you're teaching these people that have no written language, you're teaching them Sanskrit, okay? And so they're being brought into the culture. As they learn Sanskrit, how are they learning? From a teacher. And what is the teacher using? Writing. What are the writings going to be?
His philosophy.
It's going to be the stories, right? You know, it's going to be the stories. You know, that's even with Christianity. You know, that Sunday school movement in the 19th century England. Sunday school movement was not to teach religion. It was to teach the children of coal miners, you know, who got a half a day off, because the kids were working in the mines too, you know, who got a half a day off because miners, you know, they were compassionate and would give them half a day, you know, and before sending them in the mines, they'd have half a day. And to teach the kids, these children, how to read and write, churches opened. You didn't have public schools. Churches opened religious schools, Sunday school on Sunday, and taught the kids how to read and write. Well, what did they use to teach the kids how to read and write? Duh, use the Bible. You know, use the Bible. And so that's how the kids learned to read. So were they teaching religion? Well, that was a byproduct, but the intention was to teach reading and writing. And that's what we end up doing. So we have these early ideas that are being established in these Vedas, in these stories, you know, expanding in India, throughout India. Okay, we'll talk about what the content of the stories are in a little bit later. You have a Middle Age now. This is kind of a golden age in Hindu or Indian, ancient Indian culture. What do we have?
Another god.
Okay, we have other gods. We have other gods. We have now. What is this? Because in the as we move into the Middle Ages, so we're past like the year 500, 600. What happens in close proximity
Like a government?
to India in the 7th century?
Maybe more like a government.
Well, you got remember the Guptas built this huge empire, right? Dominated, founded on Hindu ideas. And there are a lot of things that if you want to keep your society stable, one of the things you probably don't want is you probably don't want a lot of people competing with one another. Yeah. I mean, if I want to keep a stable society, I don't want to do things like, I don't want to tell kids, you can grow up to be anything you want. You know, you can grow up to be better than your father. Why don't I want to teach that, especially in an ancient world? Why do I not want to teach
People
that?
want more positive instead of negativity.
Okay, they're going to want to move up, right?
Yeah.
Well,
They want them to know their place.
yeah, but what's the problem if you have people wanting to move up?
You got turmoil.
Well, you got turmoil because they got to move into somebody else's place. But then what else do you
So
have?
much power.
Well, you got power.
You won't have anybody left at the bottom.
Yes,
You won't
remember
have
that? Remember that television show called Dirty Jobs?
Yes.
It was on
Yes.
Dirty Jobs.
It's
You know,
fun.
yeah. There are things that nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to do it. You know, and if I'm saying, I'm doing that and I'm raising my family.
Well,
And my son sees that. Do I want my son to do it? Probably not. I want him to live a better life than I'm living.
Don't die and be born into it.
Okay, so but if I'm in a society, that's bad. An ancient society, because I gotta have somebody collecting the garbage. I need somebody scooping the poop off of the road, right?
Right.
You know, I gotta have that. You know, everybody can't be kings. You know, everybody can't be executives, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs. Can't do that. I gotta have somebody that. So what you develop is a social system that is rigid. You know, so that I can be sure that I've got more people to shovel the stuff off the street than priests who are being priests or teachers.
Yeah, but in Hinduism, don't you die and come up?
Well, if I'm smart, I need that as a society, right? I need that as a society. If I'm smart, what am I going to tell? What am I going to tell what faith system is going to develop that's going to support
Well,
that?
you're going to say, you do this now, and then when you die, you'll be reincarnated into the next level.
First, I'm going to give it a religious sanction, right? I'm going to say, this is what you're a nurse, right? You're a nurse. But if your son
Okay.
died,
I have sons and I have a daughter.
have sons, are they nurses?
No.
We could have a shortage of nurses. If I want to keep your sons and daughters in the medical field, what would be a really effective way?
Educated.
Tell them that's
Educate 'em.
what they're here for at this point.
Who
in time.
says?
Their parents, the priest. That's their station at this time.
Who says? Who's even more effective than parents?
Well, the priest.
Okay, who's even more effective than a priest?
God.
God says your kids have to be nurses. Now that's not real bad. But what if your job is to empty septic tanks?
Ooh.
Your family is a septic tank emptier, or a chamber pot cleaner, or what I think is worth a spittoon pot cleaner.
Okay, we got
Okay.
Keeping Henry VIII clean.
What's that?
If you're a nurse, you are.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
If you gotta have somebody to clean out,
That's
the septic tank. If I say God wants you to be and satisfied with it, in fact, God's going to judge you by the amount of satisfaction. We'll talk about it later. You're actually going to be judged based on the satisfaction and contentment you have in your job. That's going to create good karma in your life. And it's going to please God. Well, gosh, I don't know. Just being a septic cleaner my whole life is kind of a bad thing. Well, the good news, that's the bad news, but I've got some real good news for you. If you are the best septic tank cleaner,
Get more money.
No. And the best, because what would be the problem if we say, we're going to give you more money? Then society is falling apart. Because that means everybody's going to say, I want more money. So what I'm going to say is you are going to suffer during this life. But if you do it well and you don't complain and if you accept your lot, what's going to happen next time?
You're going to be stuck higher.
Your spirit, because we don't believe bodies and spirit and souls are together.
They don't believe in God at all.
Oh yes, they do.
How do they get their statue?
Well, this represents. This is going to represent God. An idol always is. They don't believe the idol is God. They believe the idol represents God. Is a portal to get to God.
An image. They're putting
Right.
an image into
But I mean, a lot of religions, including Christianity, uses images, to sort of relate to
That's
God.
the Ten Commandments.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm going to want, if you do it well, then you'll have a better life next time. You'll have a better life next time. Now, people like Karl Marx said, this is what all religions do. All religions teach us to be content with where we are. Christians just say, when you die, you get paradise. So put up with suffering now, and then you die and you get paradise. They say, put up with suffering now, and you'll come back in a higher state. You'll come back in a higher state. Reincarnation. So this is what they're using to keep control on their society. But in the 7th century, we've got another, and this is, you can worship anything you want.
Is that where Timothy comes from into after he left the apostles or the disciples?
Don't
when
mix
he
this up with
left?
Christianity.
Because I watched something on where they explained that he became an idol in India.
Well, that's the idea. There are some that believe that Thomas traveled to India. But somebody else, another group is going to get to India. As India. Now, if this is what I'm doing, if I am teaching you, be satisfied with what you have. Don't seek anything more because it's going to screw up your karma. And you may live better later in your life than you did at the beginning, but you have really screwed up what? Your next life, you've really screwed it up because you're not going to have it as good as you had it at the beginning. Now, if you've taught people, if people believe this because it's got divine sanction, are we talking about a society that's going to be aggressive?
No.
Yeah.
No, you're not talking about it's aggressive because you're content. Are you talking about a society that's going to resist?
No.
No, because it's sort of this perfect stoic society where you just put up with it.
They drew
Because
it in
things are going to get better.
Isn't this Gandhi, wasn't he?
Later. But now we're here talking about the ancient. You've got a group that's pushing up against India, the Indus River, that is very aggressive. You end up with Islam pushing up against India that is very aggressive. Exclusive religion, therefore they're looking for what? Converts. Understand, you asked about God. These Hindus, these Indians, and we'll see that next time. You can worship anything you want. Worship anything you want. If it makes you more content in the life you're living, that's good.
That's
Because
the Hindu belief, is that
there's,
what you said?
huh?
That's the Hindu belief?
Absolutely. Because there's an infinite number of gods. Infinite number of gods.
That's kind of
And therefore, but if it makes you live better, that's good, right? Right, Miranda? I mean, if God makes you live worse, do you want to worship that God? No. So find something that makes you live better.
like a positive.
Yes. But the positive is be content with what you have. Muslims are pushing it, and not just Muslims, but the Mongols. Remember we talked about the Mongols. They sweep over. You've got Tamerlane, who is sort of he's from the Mongols. He sweeps in. So India's getting beat up pretty bad by these invasions that are coming in. And by that time, Tamerlane is a Muslim. So the Muslims, who are very aggressive, are looking to convert Hindus, and they don't like this business about reincarnating your soul, because when you die, you go to heaven or you go to hell. Yeah, you don't have a second chance, to make a first impression. So you're stuck. And they're very aggressive. They're exclusive, so they want converts. Are they going to be militarily? Are they stronger or weaker? But the Indians are weaker, right? Who's stronger? The Muslims are stronger. The Mongols are stronger. The Tamerlane is stronger. So all of these groups that invade, and this is a mosque, because you see the minarets, okay? All of them, these folks that are invading are more aggressive than a people that's been taught to be content with where you are, okay? Understand it's also tricky, because when the Muslims say, man, we have converted India, we've converted everybody in India, the Hindus are saying, no, you haven't. Because what's this business about one God? We'll say, but exactly. So in the Middle Ages, you have this political decline within this Hindu empire because it's being overrun by others, but you still have this Hindu belief as being really important.
That's why you have the hotspots over now between Pakistan and India.
Absolutely. And India goes through another sort of a golden age in the 16th, 17th century. And this is Mughal India. But this is Muslim. This is the rulers are Muslim, but the people are Hindu. So you have Muslim rulers controlling Hindu people. And Hindu people are great to control because they've been told to be content, to put up with it. Taj Mahal, good. The architecture starts to develop. But it's not an Arab. What's really interesting is the Mughals in India they're not Arab Muslims, because remember the kind of Islam that moves into India is passing through, not right from Arabia, but passing through Persia. And Tamerlane and Genghis Khan, Mongols, and Turks. So it's kind of a Turkish, Persian Islam. That's why they're not adapting Arabic, right?
It just seems like there's too much going on in
They still
India.
did Sanskrit?
They're still, the Indians are using
what are
Sanskrit.
the Muslims
They're using a Persian. Yes. So it's this Persian influence that's moved into Islam, or moved into India. But the people down below, the common people, are still Hindu. Okay, now, early modern period, what ends up, and you might remember from history class, everybody's favorite subject.
Yours.
I like some historical.
Mongols are ruling India, Muslim rulers in India, enormous amount of power. Unfortunately, militarily not as advanced as what's happening in the West. What ends up occurring? Why is India important, or how might India become really important, particularly to the West?
Available to trade routes.
Okay, yeah, we got trade routes coming in from China, right? Going into Europe, right? Eventually, what do the Europeans? Silk Road, moving in. Constantinople becomes really, really important. What do the Europeans, particularly, and into Venice and the Italian states, through the Mediterranean, states like Spain, like Portugal, like England, like the Netherlands, they are away from the Mediterranean Sea, right? France, away from the Mediterranean, to a lesser extent, away from the Mediterranean Sea. They want a cut in the spices, right? The stuff that's coming in from China. How do you do that? If they can't physically move and relocate on the Silk Road, right? Okay, well, how are they going to get there?
By boat.
They get there by boat, right? So instead of traveling on land, they start sailing, but around Africa. You got to get around Africa, right? And you want the stuff from the east, right? And you got to sail all the way around Africa. Wow, you're a sailor. That's a long way, isn't it?
Never been that around there.
Wow. What would you have to do to sail around Africa?
Go through the Suez Canal.
Well, you go through the Suez Canal now, so you're going to buy that. So but you're getting, now you got to sail around Africa. And to sail, you need boats. You need boats.
You need boats, food.
You need food. So you're going to put your boats full of food?
Well, you're going to need
Yeah,
food.
well, you can't trade it if your boats are full of food.
And you need certain kind of equipment.
Yeah.
A fleet.
Okay, and you need
Things to trade.
ports, right?
Yes.
So if you're going to trade, you got to have ports. So you have these little ports on the coast of Africa. So you go here and you put a port in a place where it's nice for boats, and another port, another port, another port, another port, until you go around. Now, when you're going around into the Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, you still need ports. And where might you put these ports? You might want to put some of them in India, because India's got stuff that you want anyway. You could trade with India. So Europeans start trading with India and establishing ports. Now, when the Europeans first get there, and by the way, who are the first Europeans that are getting there? Portuguese. The Portuguese are getting there first. The Portuguese are getting there first. So they're established with trading with people in India. Now, when they first get there, are there a lot of Europeans? Can they take over? No. You can't take over because it's too cheap. So you establish a little port, make a deal with the Mughals, right? And all these trading relationships. And you're trading with them. But every time a new ship comes, some more Europeans get off the boat, right? Mm-hmm. And the Europeans
They have a habit of staying.
they like to stay. They like to settle down. They also have better weapons. Better weapons. So they're settling in, and the Hindus are used to what? Being kind of subordinate, right? All right. So we end up with Portuguese as the first, and then we have British established later. The Dutch and the British end up colonizing and pushing out the Portuguese. And they start colonizing. Now, what's the easiest way to colonize? See, we think colonies are great. Colonies are, you know what colonies are? It's a big fat headache. Would you want a colony?
No.
Heck no. Of course not. Sue, you're too bright.
No,
Too small.
I don't want a headache.
You don't want a headache. Colonies are a headache. Why are colonies such a big headache?
Because they're so far away responsibility.
They're so far away. It's a lot of responsibility. If I got a colony, what am I going to do?
They want us to build it.
There and rule it.
I got to collect the garbage. Right?
No.
I got to collect the garbage. I got to police the... when two guys get in a fight, I got to break them up. I got to make judgments. I got a lot to do in a colony. It's really hard. And do people love... When you get and say, oh, by the way, we're colonizing you. Oh, the people there, do they say, yay, we wanted to be colonized? Yeah, that's my goal in life, is to be colonized. Thank heaven we were finally discovered. We didn't even know we existed until you came. Is that what people say?
No.
Heck no. People don't like to be colonized. Because colonizing usually means what?
Change.
You got the best land.
Sacrifice.
Somebody's controlling you.
You got the best land. That's wrong. That's present tense. You had the best land. Who has the best land now? I do. Because I'm colonizing you. You got to get off my land because it's now mine. People don't like that. All right. So colonies are expensive. They're a headache. You got to worry about all this detail stuff. So what do they do in India?
They just set up a system so that they can take care of themselves with Britons.
Separate themselves?
Just sort of overruling them, but they let it come.
And why is India perfect for that?
Because they're
Okay, Hindus are subservient. Hindus don't cause a lot of trouble.
It's what they
But
were
who was ruling the Hindus?
The Muslims.
Muslims are ruling, the Rajas. Ever heard of a Raja?
No.
Oh, never heard of a Raja? Raja Chris. Raja Chris. So you've got Rajas. Those are the little Muslim rulers, little Muslim kings and princes and all. Okay, so they're in control. The British know that the people aren't going to rebel. The Rajas know the people aren't going to rebel. What do the Rajas and the British do? They make a deal. You know, what kind of deal do they make?
Well, don't they send military forces in there too?
Well, of course, the British do. But are the British, that's an island with 25 million people. Are they going to be able to subjugate India?
100 million.
Hector's pop? No. They can't have every British soldier around. You can't conquer. What do you need to conquer to control India? What do you need? You need Rajas on the payroll. You know, I'm going to hire myself some Rajas, put them on the payroll, you know, let them live in great big palaces and castles and all that kind of stuff. Show them all kinds of respect. Look, we're Christian, you're Muslim, we got a lot of common. These dumb Hindus, you know, they don't know what to do anyway. They don't know what they're doing. So why don't we just kind of run the show? You know, just you and me. And that's what the British do. You know, they put Rajas on the payroll. Now, they take direct control over some areas, but just for governance. Colonizing is almost a misnomer because you're not bringing thousands of British citizens into India, you know, but you are taking control of. You start by taking control of trade, then you take control of finances, and then you take control of foreign affairs, and then you take control of military, but you don't take control of what? Collecting the garbage. You let the Rajas collect the garbage. You know, that makes them very happy, makes them feel like they're important. All right, so as the history develops, then this is just from a historical perspective, the British Rajas. Now, within British India, you have this revival of Hinduism as a religion. But again, Hinduism tends to focus on being
mutual.
Yeah, and so the teachers in Hindu are called Swamis. Yes, Swami. How I love you. How I love you. No, that's now, Swamis are teachers, and the teachers work well with the British because the teachers are telling people you need to become more spiritual. You can become more spiritual by
listening to the British.
Yeah, listening to, but you kind of ignore the British. You listen for God. But what you're not doing is what? Picking up a gun and shooting at a British person. Okay? That's what you're not doing. Okay, so you end up with now, what is the, even without looking at the details of the religion, what are some of the things you could say about Hinduism before we even look at the beliefs?
Don't they meditate a lot?
Okay, there's a lot of meditation. And the more you're meditating, the more you're doing what?
Connecting.
The more you're thinking, you're connecting with God, right? Are you doing a lot of stuff?
No.
You're not doing a lot of stuff. Are you resisting a lot of stuff?
No.
If I want a crowd to not be a problem, Would I like that crowd to be meditating?
Yes, absolutely.
Boy, oh boy, I want him to be meditating. Do I want him to be listening to a sermon? Depends on what the sermon is. Yeah, that could be a problem. But meditating?
It's the silence.
Yeah. They're probably going to be...
Some of them are meditating about other things that's going to cause.
Well, some of them are thinking about the football
Well, it's
game.
more of a peaceful.
You know, they're Steeler fans thinking about kickoff.
It's more of a peaceful movement.
Yes, they're peaceful, which means they're not shooting at people.
Yeah.
And so so yeah, you got a religion that focuses on meditation, otherworldly stuff, relaxation, chai tea,
I love chai tea.
right?
Yes.
Yoga, you know, relaxation, connection with God. All right, that's what we're going to see in India. So, and the Hindu religious beliefs are going to enable first the Muslims and the British to dominate India for a really, really long time. A definite minority population dominated majority for a thousand years. And that has a lot to do with the religion. Now, any questions about the history of Hindu? Boy, this is really surface. This is really surface. All right. Now, next week we're going to have a dinner. And ladies, please come. You came to the dinner last year, didn't you?
It was
Y'all
the year
came.
before, wasn't it?
2 years. Yeah, it was 2 years, I think. Yeah, come to the dinners. Come to the dinners. Because we're going to have a study, too. We're going to have a dinner.
Tell them what time it starts.
Huh?
Tell them what time it starts.
Well, no, I'm not going to tell them what time it starts. But
They were
what
saying
time
about
does it start? What time does it start?
I
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Here at 6.
Okay, we're going to meet on the Tuesdays during Lent at 6 o'clock for a meal. Okay? For a meal. Yes, pretty good, right? And then we're going to have a study after that somebody's going to lead. Who's going to lead it?
You.
Yes, thank you. On the
After you do the dishes.
That's not my cast. We're going to do the Passion according, I think, of Mark. The story. We're going to break the story in Mark from the entry into Jerusalem to the cross into 4 parts. So we're going to look at each of the parts together, sort of a Bible study. Okay, which means we're going to pick up the rest of Hinduism after Easter, because that's what we're going to be doing on Tuesday. So please come. Rose made, what did you make, Rose?
Sour cream chicken.
Sour cream chicken and potatoes.
Wow.
And it's going to be, we're going to turn them into like popsicles.
No, we're not.
And we're going to lick them.
We'll just make a fresh one.
Your mother made those.
Just so good.
Make your jambalaya.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what we're going to do.
Make your
Please
jambalaya.
come to that. Ask friends. It's going to be just bring a covered dish. You know.
With food on it.
Yeah, we'll get settings and that kind of jazz. But bring a covered dish. Just some sandwich. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Soup. I'd like oysters. Oysters I like.
It's 5 o'clock, not 6 for that.
5 o'clock?
Yes.
I think the deacons
Is
have
it
to show
5
for
o'clock?
5.
Yeah, I think we eat at 6.
Yeah,
We eat at 6.
So what's going on at 5 o'clock?
No, the deacons are going to set up this stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so come. We'll have a study, and then after Easter we'll pick up on Hinduism, which would be really, really exciting. Seemed like, one other thing I want to tell you before. My daughter, because in school, they learn different religions, and including Christianity, but they learn it from, this presented the same way as Islam and Judaism. Sort of like what I'm trying to do here. Teach it as a social movement or something. Yeah, just sort of that. Well, they studied Hinduism. And Maggie got into the car one morning and said, "Dad, I want to be Hindu."
Oh, jeez.
And I said, "Well, Maggie, why? Why do you want to be Hindu?" And she said, "I think we should all be Hindu." And I said, "Well, why?" And she said, "Because, Dad, that would put us in the highest caste." Because as a minister, you know, that would put us in the highest caste. And that means I could tell people what to do. I'd be better than they are. Because we'd be at the very top. And I said, Maggie, that's a very good point. But there's one thing, though, that you got to keep in mind. If we all become Hindu, and we have this caste system, and we are in this priestly high caste, that means the only person you can marry is a preacher's kid. And she thought about it for a minute and said,
No.
I don't think I want to be Hindu. So let's have a word of prayer. Lord God, thank you for guiding us through this. Help us, especially after Easter, when we start thinking about beliefs, help us open our minds so that we can see an approach to God that is really very, very different than the way we have approached God ourselves. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Amen.
You're going to make your end alive next week.
Well, I'm telling you. I might.